Okay, let's talk about the best hybrid camera of 2026. Now, the best hybrid camera of 2026 doesn't have the best specs, however, it disappears in your workflow. It's something that is just reliable, something that can do both photo and video very well, without compromising for photo or video. For example, the FX3 is a great video camera with amazing low light performance. However, you're sacrificing the capabilities of doing photo well because it only has a 12 megapixel sensor. Now, just as a spoiler alert, I think the best hybrid camera of 2026 is actually the A7 IV. Full disclosure, Sony did not pay me to say any of this. This is just based off of my workflow and systems as well as my personal use with the A7 IV. Now, a lot of people can argue that the Canon RV6 is actually a really great camera and could be the FX3 killer, and they are totally right. That's totally fine by me to admit that the RV6 Canon is better than the FX3. However, I also believe that the A7 IV is better than the FX3. Maybe quite possibly better than the RV6 in certain situations. Now, personally, I'm a Sony shooter. If you're a Canon user, go with the RV6. You already have the glass for it. But in my opinion, the Sony system is just a little bit more versatile, while Canon makes you buy Canon glass and you get third-party lenses with Sony's and a little bit better of low-light performance with Sony's. Canon's newest camera at the moment, I believe, came out for $2,500. This camera is, I believe, $2,800 or $2,900. I have to look that up, but it's still an amazing camera. Now, I want to be clear. The A7 IV doesn't have the highest resolution. It isn't the fastest sports camera, it's not the cheapest, and it's not a cinema first camera body. But it might be the best overall camera for things like weddings, commercials, YouTube projects, documentaries, social content, as well as photography and videography. It does everything very well, it just doesn't do something in particularly the best. In my personal workflow for my business, the A7 IV has come with me to every single project and will probably come with me to every single project from here on to the future. And I do have the FX3, I have the FX30, I have the A7 IV, now I have the A7 V, and I also have a Sony a6400. But this is my favorite and best camera, and it does everything well. Certain things that also make this camera absolutely amazing is the battery life has improved significantly. So instead of shooting for about an hour on the FX3 at 4K 60 frames per second, I get about 2.5 hours on this A7 V, again 4K 60 frames per second. But the cool thing is this is a 7K sensor, but it shoots 4K, so it's a downsampled image from 7K. So you still get a little bit more detail even though you're shooting in 4K. On top of that, the heat sink that they have built into this camera is actually super powerful. I was shooting a Catholic ceremony, which is about an hour and 20 minutes long. I didn't have to swap out the battery once, and the thing didn't overheat at 4K 60 frames per second. The FX3 has a built-in fan, the FX30 has a built-in fan, so those didn't overheat, and neither did this A7 V. However, it's really important to note that if I'm shooting a rainy ceremony, which has happened in the past, or I'm outside, I'm in the rain, I'm in the elements, I would have to put away my FX3 and my FX30 because of that fan. However, the A7 V is weather sealed, so I could sit in the rain and film the whole ceremony if I really wanted to. So it doesn't overheat, it's weather sealed, shoots 4K 60 frames per second, and the battery outlasts the FX3. With all of those specs in mind, this is a great camera. However, the biggest gripe that I do have with this camera is the rolling shutter. If you don't know, rolling shutter is that like wibbly wobbly effect when you take a camera and you move it side to side to get this like gelatin kind of look. And that is almost eliminated with the FX3 because it does a rolling shutter. It essentially captures the image in a circle rather than a shutter. Sony has made the rolling shutter problem better in the A7 V than the A7 IV, and again, this is a hybrid camera. It's not a cinema first camera. It takes great photos and it does video very well. And for a run and gun shooter like myself, this is a creator's dream. When it comes to modern cameras, I do believe that there are certain cameras for each specific job. I mean, the FX3 is a production camera. It just is. So is the FX6. And if you're running a production, you should get production cameras. And if you're doing photography for weddings, then maybe the A7 III or the A7 IV just does fine for you. When it comes to modern cameras, specs are becoming less important, and the workflow and the final product is becoming more important. Now, this camera also has dual SD card slots, as well as you heard me, two USB-C ports, as well as an HDMI port, as well as a headphone jack and all the other stuff you need. But two USB-C ports is amazing, and an HDMI port is obviously needed. Now, for me, this A7 IV has made my workflow a whole lot easier for one specific reason. We could talk about the dynamic range in this camera, which is better. We could talk about the skin tones, which is better. We could talk about the low light performance compared to the A7 IV, which in this it's better because of the ISO being at 8000. When it comes to the IBIS of this camera, this thing has 7.5 stops of IBIS, which makes handheld shots even easier. And it's become so easy to get handheld shots that this has actually replaced my gimbal for weddings. And that statement alone is crazy. Don't get me wrong, there's an 85mm on this camera, which I'll show you some test footage and what I'm talking about. But when you go into this camera, there's actually 3 different stops of stabilization. Obviously, there's a standard, which gives you a standard. Active punches in a little bit, but gives you a little more smoother look. And then there's also this new steady shot stabilization, which is called dynamic active, and it punches in about 1.5 times like an APS-C sensor would. However, this is a full frame camera, so you're downsampling from 7K down to 4K and still punching in. And if you do the math, it's something like you still get 5K worth of detail even after the dynamic stabilization. And I kid you not, this thing feels so smooth. It feels way smoother than my FX3 or my FX30 or any other cameras that I have personally bought, and it has changed the game for me. When it comes to me being as incognito as possible, this has now become my favorite camera to do so because of the IBIS, because of the ISO, and because of all the other features that are packed into this camera. In my opinion, this is the best hybrid camera for 2026, and I don't know why others don't agree with it. Like, I can understand the price point, I can understand their needs, but you also have to understand every single camera is like a tool in your bag to get the job done. Not every tool is going to get the job done. This one is pretty close to being the one-use tool for everything. It is so close. Would I ever bring it to a production set? Probably not, because this isn't a production camera. However, again, it does photo and video well, and personally, I would still probably bring it to every single shoot that I do, including production, but this would become a B cam or a C cam on production, but I would still absolutely bring it. And when it comes to hybrid cameras, there's always a trade-off that's happening. But in my opinion, I think Sony nailed it with this A7 V. Getting the A7 V, in my opinion, is a super smart decision if you're looking to solve a lot of technical problems on a run-and-gun shoot. That way you have more time to focus on the creative side of things. Now, who is this camera for specifically? In my opinion, if you're a creative who does photography and videography for any weddings or events, I think this thing is perfect because you have the versatility for every single moment, as well as the easiest workflow for you. Now, if you're doing just photo, there is a different camera out there for you. If you're doing just video, there's a different camera out there for you. However, if you do both, I do believe that the A7 V is the best hybrid camera of 2026.